Think of a memory you haven't visited in years. Your childhood home. Someone you loved. A conversation you still remember. You can almost see it. The room. The faces. The sound of someone's voice. It feels like you're looking backward through a window. But there is something strange about memory. When you remember something, your brain doesn't simply open a file. It rebuilds the memory. And sometimes, the act of remembering can make that memory temporarily vulnerable to change. This is where things become uncomfortable. Because if your memories can be modified, then what exactly are you remembering? The event? Or the last version of the event your brain reconstructed? For a long time, memory was often treated as something that became stable after it was stored. But neuroscience has revealed a stranger possibility. Under certain conditions, retrieving a consolidated memory can make it temporarily labile. Then it has to stabilize again. Scientists call this process reconsolidation. And during this period, new information can sometimes become incorporated into the memory. Not every memory. Not every retrieval. Not under every condition. But enough to force a disturbing question. What if remembering the past is partly an act of rewriting it? Imagine you remember your 10th birthday. You remember the cake. The room. Your parents. Maybe even where you were sitting. Now imagine someone shows you an old photograph. And you notice something you never remembered. A person was standing in the corner. You had completely forgotten them. You look at the photograph again. Then you remember. Or at least, you think you remember. But now the image in your mind contains that person. The next time you recall the birthday, that detail may feel as if it had always been there. This is the strange difference between a memory and a recording. A recording preserves. A memory reconstructs. And reconstruction leaves room for change. But here's where the story becomes even stranger. Your brain isn't trying to preserve the past perfectly. It has another problem. The world keeps changing. So a memory that never changed would eventually become less useful. Imagine learning that a particular road leads somewhere dangerous. Years later, the road changes. If your brain could never update what you learned, your old memory could become a liability. So memory may need to remain flexible. The past has to be stable enough to guide you, but flexible enough to survive the future. And this creates a paradox. The very mechanism that allows memory to remain useful may also make it imperfect. Which means your memories might not be inaccurate because your brain is broken. They may be imperfect because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. But then another question appears. If your memories are constantly being reconstructed, how much of your past actually belongs to the past? And how much belongs to the person remembering it? Because every time you remember yourself, you are remembering from the perspective of who you are now. The child who experienced the event is gone. The teenager who understood it is gone. The person remembering it today is someone else. And that means the past you carry inside your head may be partly constructed by the present. Which leads to a much darker possibility. Maybe memory doesn't just preserve your identity. Maybe memory helps manufacture it. And if that's true, then the person you believed you have always been might partly be a story your brain keeps rebuilding. Consider what this means. You remember being afraid of something. You remember failing. You remember being rejected. You remember someone hurting you. But you never experience those events directly again. You experience your memory of them. And that memory is being reconstructed by a brain that has changed since the event happened. new experiences, new beliefs, new emotions, new information. All of these can influence how the past is represented. This does not mean your entire past is fictional. It means something more subtle. A memory can preserve information about an event, while still changing in the way that event is represented. That distinction matters, because we often treat memory as evidence. I remember it clearly. Therefore, it must have happened exactly that way. But confidence and accuracy are not the same thing. A vivid memory can still contain distortion. And an uncertain memory can still contain something true. The strange part is that you have no direct access to the original experience anymore. You only have the reconstruction. You cannot travel backward and compare it. The past is inaccessible. All you have is the version your brain can produce now. And suddenly, memory begins to look less like a photograph, and more like a conversation between the past and the present. The past provides the information. The present interprets it. Then something even more disturbing happens. Your interpretation becomes part of the memory you carry forward. So the story you tell yourself about your past can become part of the past you remember. This creates a loop. You experience something. You remember it. You interpret it. You remember the interpretation. And eventually, you may no longer know where the original experience ends, and the story begins. Philosophers have argued for centuries about personal identity. What makes you the same person across time? Your body? Your consciousness? Your personality? Your memories? But if memory is not a fixed archive, then memory may not be the solid foundation we imagine. Maybe identity is not a permanent object. Maybe it is a continuously reconstructed model. A story that remains coherent enough for you to recognize yourself. And perhaps that's why memory feels so intimate. It isn't merely something you possess. It is one of the mechanisms through which you construct the person who possesses it. But there is one final problem. If your brain is constantly rebuilding your past, then the version of yourself you remember may never have existed exactly as you remember it. Not because you are lying. Not because your memories are meaningless. But because the past you carry is always being viewed from somewhere. And that somewhere is now. So think about the memory you started this video with. The one you were certain you remembered. Ask yourself, how much of it belongs to the moment that happened, and how much belongs to every moment that came after? Because if memory is reconstructed every time we return to it, then perhaps the past isn't something we simply carry forward. Perhaps we keep rewriting it. And if the person you are today is partly built from those memories, then there is one question we can't avoid. When you remember who you were, are you discovering your past, or creating the person you believe you used to be? When you remember who you were, are you discovering your past, or creating the person you believe you used to be?